What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel with On 3. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to take a pulse of the program for the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. Welcome into the Hard Count, the people's show for every single thing that you know and that you love about college football. It happens here on a daily basis. Nick Brake doing the heavy lifting. You can help drive the show by subscribing to the channel. The Pulse of the Program series continues as we make our way down to Bryan College Station and take a pulse of the Texas A&M Aggies. A lot of buzz about that program here in the not too distant past, where some of it wasn't necessarily for even things going on the field. Nick Saban and Jimbo lined it up in the headlines and had a very public dispute. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what is the pulse internally within that locker room, within the people making it happen on Saturdays, and then within the fan base, the people who are showing up on Saturdays. Probably one of the most visible fan bases in all of college football. Lastly, I'm going to give you my diagnosis, my word of advice, if you will, for what I think Texas A&M needs to do in 2022. Internally, I'm looking at Texas A&M, and the pulse of the program is we've peaked over the mountaintop. Because if you remember correctly, they beat Alabama, the big dog Alabama, the Goliath, if you will. They took them down. And for Texas A&M, that was sort of the moment where they're saying, okay, we did it. We can do it. We did it with a backup quarterback who's not even on a roster anymore, but we did this, folks. We're capable. We have it under the hood. That sense of belief is enormous for Texas A&M. To have gotten over the hump like that cannot be overstated. Now, they have to do it consistently. It's not good enough to beat Alabama one time during the regular season. You got to do it consistently week in and week out. Within this team, how they're built, added depth to the D-line, get a lot of guys back from a season ago in terms of guys that lost from injury. The concern for me is youth. Because of their 22 projected starters, 12 of those guys will either be sophomores or freshmen. Now, youth is not a bad thing. How quickly can you mature? That's the question I'm waiting to see. It's no secret. The quarterback room is a battle right now. I mean, you got Connor Wegman, who's the future. You got Haynes King. You got Max Johnson going toe-to-toe. I would slightly lead Max Johnson for reasons I've already communicated on this show before, but ultimately, whoever the best player is going to come out of fall camp, because fall camp is competition time and the cream is going to rise to the top, and whoever takes hold of that job in fall camp, good. That's all I have to say on that. So ultimately, internally, the pulse is, hey, we've done it before, but we got to string it together now. It's not good enough to just be good for 1 week. You got to do it week in and week out and get to where you want to be, because Jimbo has made it very clear. He has set championship expectations before this program and said, hey, we're not here just to win the SEC. We want to win the whole deal, get to the college football playoff. And they've been on the cusp of that before. They've been on the doorstep multiple times, it feels like, but then it's a game here, it's a game there, and before you know it, you're 8-4. So for A&M, the feeling internally is, like I just mentioned, we've peaked over the top, we've seen the mountaintop, but we want to stay there week in and week out. In terms of what they're feeling internally with this fan base, the pulse of the fan base right now is a lot of juice, a lot of buzz. They're ready for the next step. Their pulse is what's next. Because for Jimbo Fisher, they've done a lot of good things. Like I just mentioned, they've teed this thing up about as well as you could ask. The fan base is saying, okay, now let's actually get to where we want to be. Jimbo, we've been patient. We've paid you a lot of money, all this, that, and the other. Let's start to see some ROI. That's what they're waiting for. Talk to some people close to that program. They said the fan base is expecting at least 9 or 10 wins. The baseline, if everything goes to the Dogs, is 8 wins. If we got 8 wins or less, we might have to have another conversation in terms of what the fan base is saying to Jimbo. You catch my drift? The fan base is hungry for that next step. So if you look at these two camps with the internal pulse of that program and that locker room and the internal pulse of that fan base, they're very much aligned. They both have their sights set on what's ahead. What can we get to? Because like I said, we have been there and done that in terms of regular season accolades. A&M is not a mediocre program, and they've proven that, but they have knocked the mediocre accolades out of the park. Like they've crossed everything off up to that point. They want to get to that next step. And that's what happens when you build a program. I just want to make sure we're very clear in this. This is a part of the building process. Jimbo Fisher is installing his guys, installing his culture, installing his systems, and there's an installation process period. Now, the transfer portal has made that a little bit more of a microwavable process, but ultimately for Jimbo, this next year or two, in my opinion, is when we're going to start to see that really pay off, really have the ROI. We saw glimpses of it, especially during the COVID year, but this is the season where both the fan base and the program are looking to take the next step to elite. Now, my diagnosis for Texas A&M is very much a matter of jumping off that cliff. Because when you get up to the top of a cliff or a waterfall or any high dive, you take a look over the edge and you peek and you say, whew, that's high. That is very, very high. And it's scary. It is uncomfortable. It is scary. It is uncharted territory for most people. But you just got to jump. And that's what I would say for Texas A&M. You just have to jump. You just have to jump to be a part of that elite group. And some of that is just the belief as well. Some of that is, hey, I know that I'm going to jump off this and I know that I'm going to get to elite. Like, you have to believe it before anybody else does. And you have to swing for the fence and all of those cliches. And for A&M, I think they need to start acting like an elite program. They just need to start carrying themselves in an elite program, because I think they do feel that way in-house, but it's a matter of, okay, now we need to set our sights on elite things. We're not just trying to be a 9-win team. We're trying to get to the college football playoff. And so I think it's got to be a jump in terms of belief and approach and mantra, and Jimbo Fisher has that pedigree. Make no mistake about it. He's been to the mountaintop with Florida State. He knows what it's like to make that jump. For Florida State to have done that under him is enormous. But for Texas A&M, the time is now to jump. Close your eyes, squint real hard, take that leap of faith. I'm excited for Texas A&M. A lot of good things happening there. They're on fire in the recruiting trail. Good things are ahead in College Station. That's it for us here on The Hard Count. We appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at JDPakeltaSafe with every single thing we're doing here. We want you along for the ride. We're going to keep the party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.